Nigerian youths, I would say a large section of them, are possibly excited and expressing joy after, of course, there are hopes of possibly a merger between Labour Party's Peter Obi and the NNPP's Rabiu Kwankwanso. And that conversation has dominated social media over the last couple of days. Well, the elections in Ekiti have come and gone. There is a governor-elect, and in a matter of weeks, we will have a new dispensation, or you could say a continuation of the old order right there in Ekiti State. Well, these will get us talking on the show this evening, even as we review what went down out there in Ekiti. And that's my cue to welcome you to another bumper edition. I have to be honest. Okay, you don't want to know. I've not prepared that much for this show. But anyhow, we're going to do what needs to be done. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. I've got my chief producer and anchor right here in the building. Aghogho Oboh will be taking the lead. Aghogho, a very good evening to you. I've been hustling. let me tell the audience what I've been doing. I've been hustling all day.
A fantastic evening to you, Ufuoma, to everyone who's joined in the newsroom. I hope Ufuoma's son now knows what his father does. Father's Day was yesterday.
You didn't have to bring that up. My goodness, they said that the FCC should start looking for me. Well, in case you were wondering what that joke was about, maybe you don't understand. I think you probably, after this show, probably go check out the Nigeria Info YouTube page. It's actually Nigeria space Info space FM. Type it on your YouTube, and of course, go search for the Nigeria Info Father's Day special. Best dad ever. That's what the digital team calls that one. And it was brilliant. My 4-year-old son was asked what I do for a living. And the young man says, I've watched that thing more than 30 times. And every time I laugh, he says that I press buttons on my laptop. Still hilarious. But it was great. It was so emotional watching that video.
Oh, boy.
And of course, your daughter and Femi Obong Daniel's boys. You know, it was really great. And we say happy Father's Day once again to every father out there and everyone who's been taking that father figure role. Okay, Aghogho, on the show today,
right?
We're expecting to be joined by, of course, two wonderful politicians. And of course, we would have the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. Looks like we already have him on the line. A very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, that's, of course, the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. He's held quite a number of positions in Nigeria. His name is Doyin Okukpe. A very good evening to you once again. Welcome to the newsroom.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. All right, Dr. Okukpe, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I was just, congratulations on your emergence. The other time we spoke with you on the station, you were the campaign lead for Peter Obi, but now you're his vice presidential candidate. So let's say that we have a big one for you straight away. So first and foremost, we've been hearing talk that discussions been going on between your party and the New Nigeria People's Party on a possible coalition or merger, or some sort of arrangement that will see you have a common front in next year's presidential election at least. Can you give us an idea of what exactly those talks are about?
Well, basically, there have been informal talks. There have been third-party discussions between.
Could you say that again? Hello?
Yes, there have been informal talks.
Okay.
There have been third-party discussions between us and the leadership of the New Nigerian People's Party. But we've had two formal talks at committee level. You know, each one lasting about 3 hours and over a period of 2 days. I think the last one was, I think it was Friday last week.
Okay.
We have come to some agreements, but on some critical issues, we do not have a consensus, so to speak. And so we defer discussions on that till maybe some further date. But what we have agreed upon essentially is that we will cooperate together as two parties, hoping to be able to reset Nigeria and and take Nigeria back from the stranglehold of both APC and PDP. But fundamentally, on the issue of power shift from the north to the south, we are yet to come to an acceptable position, both of us. The Tankwaso groups are insisting on, the north retaining power. While on our side, we believe that what is equitable is that power should shift to the south, and that therefore, in that union, not a matter of age, of qualification, or place of birth, but basically on the issue of a position that the southern Nigeria has taken, which has now been endorsed by majority of governors, northern governors in APC. We hold it sacred that the presidency should come to the south, and therefore, in that partnership, His Excellency Peter Obi should be the president, while Senator Kwankwaso, His Excellency Senator Kwankwaso, will be his vice. But on this, we do not have an agreement.
Okay, so let me ask you now, what do you consider the strengths of both parties and the reasons why you are seeking to have these merger or the coalition? What are those individual strengths?
Let me tell you, it's understandable that His Excellency Peter Obi has had tremendous political penetration, covering the entire of the southern Nigeria. All right? If you say I should give some percentage consideration, I would say 60-70% is about 60 to 70% penetration in the south. Whereas in the north, we are looking at something, about half of that. So it is not satisfactory. But on the reverse, the new Nigerian People's Party has, a tremendous presence in Kano, which is more or less the largest voting population in the country.
Yeah.
And environment. So, a combination of both will make up for the deficit of either of the two parties in terms of regional domination, regional presence or dominancy. So that is why the union is necessary to start with. And you see, in politics, synergy is not like arithmetic. So if I'm coming with, let's say, 10 states, and you are coming with 4 states, the addition in arithmetic is 14. But in politics, it can go as high as 20 or 24. You see, because that unity, that synergy, will now attract other units and other, to come into that synergy and increase its potency. So that is why it is desirable that two of us should
work together,
come together.
Okay, before my colleague asks you another question, that I just want to feed off, your some of your answers to the last question. So for a lot of political analysts, or for a lot of Nigerians, it does look like the 2023 presidential election would mirror Nigeria's elections in the 60s, 70s, and maybe the 1983 election, in the sense that I agree that a lot of Nigerian voters, or even voters across the world, vote a lot on sentiment. But 2023 is looking like it could be a tribal thing, an Igbo versus a Yoruba versus a Hausa Fulani. What do you say to people who are looking at it from this prism?
Well, it will be actually pretentious, hypocritical, and unrealistic if we think tribal sentiment, religious consideration, ethnicity will not play a role in 2023. In fact, they will play very dominant roles. All these new considerations that Nigeria should do away with this, do away with that, they are just wishful thinking. I am not a tribalist, and I'm not a religious bigot, but I am a practical, practicing politician, and I'm a realist. The events in Nigeria in the last 4 years or 6 years have polarized the country so badly that it is impossible to actually wish that this negativism that is heavily embedded in our policy will not play any major role in the constitutions of 2023. That will be a political fallacy.
All right.
The truth of the matter is that they will stand up like thorns in our flesh.
All right. In case you just joined us on the newsroom, we have Dr. Doyin Okukwe, who is the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. And so interestingly, you're like several politicians, they say, have an extra dose of optimism. So they be the eternal optimist in how things play out. But in every event, there are always two outcomes. Either it works or it doesn't work. How would you consider the chances of your party if this coalition agreement doesn't work out and you'd have to go on your own for next year's election? How would you consider your chances to be?
Working with NNPP is an icing on our cake. You know what I mean? It's an icing on our cake. But, when you are really, really hungry, or when you had a good caterer that has made a good cake, you can do without the ice. And you see have a good feel, with your cake. You still have a good feel. It's making assurances doubly sure for us, and also, to form the basis and give us a platform for the formation of the new Nigerian grand political alliance that we have conceived. You understand? So, that is what we are looking at. But you see, the Labour Party, under the Peter Obi leadership, has become a national and almost a global movement. It has gone beyond the shores of Nigeria. You understand? Nigerians in diaspora are heavily committed and involved. The entire of this country, to a lesser extent, the northern part of the country, is heavily consumed by this raving surge of popularity for Peter Obi. We think that this will continue to rise and become very evident, before the end of the year. And the victory in 2023, by end of this year, will be easily projectable by anybody, and you don't really have to be a seer or a prophet or a man of God like Reverend Mbaka.
Yeah, you had to throw in that subtle jab. I love it.
It was not a jab.
I get it. It was lovely. It was lovely you did that. I would have to ask you this. So critics will say, or critics have continued to say that, well, part of that, and that the Labour Party is more or less filled with just social media noise, that your constituency is more social media, and that when the chips are down, the old chip of the block, the guys who've been there, done that, your former party, the PDP, and of course the ruling APC, would end up getting, either of them getting victory. What do you say to this?
Thank you very much. I will answer this as straightforwardly as possible. Number one, to ignore or underestimate the potency of the social media on larger polity is a gross error. All right? It is true that people have been shown to be popular on social media, and when it came to voting, that popularity was not evident. But you see, Nigeria has come through some very harrowing, experiences that members and the citizens of this country have undergone. Nigeria has moved away from the placidity of the past by young people. All right? The youth of this country have moved away from the placidity, the ineffectivity of their past. And that came to become self-evident by the birth of the NSAS young generation. All right? Now, this NSAS young generation is a tip of the iceberg of what is brewing now. If anybody thinks that the people on the social media will not have the commitment to go out to collect PVCs and vote, they are jokers. Nigeria is in a transitional period when those who usually were on the fence are now taking politics very serious, and they want to participate. For your information, there are 30 million Nigerians on the social media, 30 million Nigerians. If 50% of them will as much as bother to collect PVC, and out of that 50%, if 70% will go on to vote, we are looking at about 7 million people. The highest votes that we have had in this country so far, when combined, is something about maybe 25 to 30 million. So if you divide it into two, we are looking at 50 million apiece. Wherever that 7 million cast their votes, that's the winner. And I'm telling you, I repeat it again, to imagine that the young people on social media, will have no effect on this 2023 election, will be a very dangerous
assumption. Okay.
Very dangerous assumption.
Okay.
That's one. Now, the followership for Peter Obi has broken the bounds of social media. You understand? It has gone beyond the social media. Look, for so many years, INEC has spent billions of naira, trying to educate people on voter registration and voter turnout. But they have achieved very little success. But, very recently, upon the pronouncement by Peter Obi that young people should get up and go and register, there has been an upsurge such that even INEC admits that they have never seen before. And 80% of these new entrants, in the register of voters are Nigerian youths. Those who ignore the power, the emerging power of the Nigerian youth will be overtaken, overridden, and helplessly trodden down in 2023.
All right, Dr. Doyin Okupe, just before I let you go, quickly, I'll need you to answer this. Quite agreed. You've talked about why, the young people should not be overlooked. But then there's a school of thought that says a lot of these emerging new voters are persons in the more urban cities, and that elections are most likely won in the rural areas. Those hinterlands in the respective states. How do you hope to reach these voters? Some would say the uneducated folks, who make up a bulk of the majority of voters.
Now, let us go and study the demographic of Nigeria and the movement of people in general. Lagos State, for example, has a lot of rural areas in Badagry, in Ekpe, in Ikorodu, in various, those various satellite towns. But I'm telling you that 70% of the votes in Lagos comes from urban Lagos. Fact. So don't kid yourself. Yes, look, I'm telling you that Nigeria is going through a transition period. Do you understand? We're going through a transition period when I have studied voting patterns. The reason why people say that there's voters apathy is because voters in the cities, who are by far the majority, do not come out to vote. But consistently, voters in the rural areas have always voted. But, they do, but because those who are really, where the population is, they do not come out, it appears as if the rural voters are in control. It is not true. It is not true. I'm telling you, it's not true. If you control Ibadan municipality, you will win Oyo State. If you control Lagos City, Lagos Metropolitan City, you will win Lagos State.
Not Alimosho.
That goes for Kano, that goes for Port Harcourt, and goes for everywhere. There's a new thing coming to the country. Only those who have the foresight and the understanding can see it.
Okay.
But in 2023, all the myths, all the previous political pillars that people rested on will be shattered.
Okay.
Labour Party is coming on top. I've told you, by the end of the election in 2023, President Peter Obi will have more votes than total votes of APC and PDP combined.
All right. We're going to keep our Dr. Doyin Okupe, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but it's been great speaking with you, and we'll touch bases with you again to see how those talks eventually are concluded. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
All right, that was, of course, the vice presidential candidate, even though he did confirm that he's holding that position, at least for now, on a temporary basis. But as it is, if the elections were to hold today, he will be the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. And to a large extent, we are also trying to reach out to his counterpart. That's talking about the vice presidential candidate of the NNPP, who is hopefully going to join us in a bit. We're talking Mr. Ladipo Johnson. While we're trying to, of course, reach out to him, let's also let you know that on the show today we will be doing a little bit of a review of what went down over the weekend out there in Ekiti. Well, some have suggested that that could be a classic picture of what to expect at the 2023 elections. But of course, the former spokesperson to President Goodluck Jonathan, who's also the VP candidate for the Labour Party, Dr. Doyin Okukwe, has just told us that no, you're not going to see that natural trend. You're going to see something different. And do we have Mr. Ladipo Johnson on the line right now? Hello? Okay, Aghogho, it looks like we're really struggling to achieve that. But quickly, let's get into all this conversation. Doyin Okukwe says, well, they've agreed on a few things,
right,
but the main one, the big one, which is the fact that they are premising their argument on power rotating from the north to the south, because we've had 7 years of a northerner, and to a large extent, they believe power should rotate to the south. But you and I have had these conversations over and over again, and for me, I believe that the former governor of Kano State, Senator Rabi Okwakwanso, wants to be a president. In fact, he is already a presidential candidate, and I do not see him, that this is me now, I do not see him relinquishing that position to serve as a vice presidential candidate to the Labour Party man. Same way, I do not also see a Peter Obi leaving off the kind of momentum, that he has, both from some of the elites, some of the middle class persons, and a lot of Nigerian youths on social media and even offline. I do not also see him agreeing to become a vice presidential candidate to Rabi Okwakwanso. So what's going to give?
Absolutely. And, earlier on, I'd spoken with, I don't know why we can't get Ladipo Johnson, the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, of NNPP. Also towing the same line as Dr. Doyin Okukwe in saying that we found one thing which is constant, which is ego. The ego of both politicians is at play here. And you can see it even from the body language, saying that my party is, got more structure than your own party. We control this, you don't control this, we control that. And the big question which you ask, which is what many supporters of both candidates have put out on social media, the fact that they're not willing to consider any other thing lower than president is the stalling point here. It's like that discussion around resource control, where they say that we talk about every other thing they've talked about, but who becomes vice president, who becomes president is where this whole discussion is stalled. And frankly speaking, just like Dr. Okukwe has said, they may not find a way out of this one, because the average Joe on the street believes that Peter Obi is president. The same for Kwankwaso's supporters in the northwest, especially northwest
Nigeria,
insist that he's also ready-made president to be. So, but they've said they could work on other areas,
So we could have a situation where National Assembly elections, say for House of Reps and for senators, we could have a situation where both parties will collaborate. For example, in the northwest, say Kano, Jigawa, Kaduna, where maybe the Labour Party might not have that many candidates. It could be a situation of collaborating with the NNPP. Same way in southern Nigeria. You could argue, especially in the southeast of the country, where maybe the NNPP do not have candidates, or do not have strong enough candidates, or do not have presence. They could also be that collaboration. But which comes back to the question, I was trying to ask Dr. Okukwe. Critics will continuously argue that you need to have presence in wards, local governments, and states across the federation to be able to get this done. Do we have the NMPP?
No, we have Nelson.
Okay, all right. Nelson Akujimi is joining us on the show this evening, and of course that will be our cue to talk about what went down in the governorship elections in Ekiti State. It has come and gone. We have a winner. The APC has retained their seat with a wide margin, over 100,000 or thereabout votes, more than second placed SDP, former Governor Segun Oni. Mr. Nelson, a very good evening to you. Welcome to the newsroom.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Good evening, Lagosians and Nigerians.
Okay, let me start by asking you. You were in Ekiti monitoring the elections, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Just in a nutshell, tell us what your experience was like covering the governorship elections there.
Well, thank you very much. The elections held on Saturday, and one went to that election with some premonition of what transpired at the Anambra State gubernatorial elections, where INEC didn't live up to the billing with the BVAS machine. But lo and behold, on Saturday, June 18, 2022, in Ekiti State, one started the monitoring of the election from the state capital. As at 8:20 a.m., most polling stations were up and running with the VVAS machine working effectively well. And as at 9 a.m., from reports gathered even from those who were deployed to cover other local governments, we got reports that almost all the polling stations received the INEC personnel and their materials, and they were up and running as at 9 a.m. And you need to see the crowd at some of the polling stations, which foretold that the people were very serious about the business of the day. While in some polling stations, you got there, the voters were coming out skeletally. The security was top notch. We saw that even about 3 days before the election, where military personnel were stationed at roadblocks. They searched you. They were very polite with motorists and commuters. And on election day, or a day before, we saw this motorized patrol to show that we call show of force by the security agencies, warning any would-be troublemaker, because before the election, reports was rife in the air that some thugs had been imported to cause mayhem, and a lot of people were apprehensive. But with the show of force and how the military were deployed, one became reassured that, look, anybody who is going to cause trouble, like we say in our local parlance,
he's on his own.
If you do when, you go here, when.
And Nelson, talking about military, talk about quick time military precision in how the results did emerge. I remember we spoke with the INEC Commissioner for Voter Education and Publicity, or Information rather, Festus Okoye, and we had joked with him that when does he think the results will start to come out? And he said, by 6 p.m. we'll get at least 60% of those results out. It appears that he even underestimated the efficiency of the INEC system, because we're doing a clockwork of how the results were coming out. And by 7 p.m., lo and behold, we'd seen almost 80% to 90% of the results already uploaded on the INEC viewing portal. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yes, you are very correct. Like I told you, when INEC conducted the Anambra Guba polls, I was one of those who was very angry, and I got a lot of Nigerians to condemn INEC with poor performance in that election. But I can tell you categorically clear, with all sense of modesty, that INEC surprised Nigerians with the way they conducted this election. We expected, as you rightly said, about 60 or 50% by 6 or 7 p.m. But lo and behold, before 8 p.m., we had almost all the results, about 80%. So that tells you clearly that INEC was on top of its game. And we must encourage them, we must applaud them, and tell them that, look, there's no going back from this level of performance. We expect more as Nigerians.
Do you think Nigerians themselves are ready, looking at what you witnessed at the Ekiti elections over the weekend? Do you think Nigerians are ready for the 2023 general elections?
Oh, absolutely. I believe Nigerians are ready. No matter the occurrences at the polling stations. What this election has shown to us again is to tell who be naysayers that vote counts, that the voter has now become king. And that is why you had reports of voters' inducement that even EFCC apprehended some vote merchants, those who buy votes. But unfortunately, we didn't see any vote seller who was apprehended. But be that as it may, what it tells any Nigerian, and they should take it home now, is that elections is one in which, like in business, the voter is the customer. He is king. You have to approach him, you have to talk to him to convince him to vote for you. But as we say, we'll continuously engage our people that, look, the best thing to do is for you to vote for a candidate based on your conscience, based on his credentials, and not based on his pocket.
Any area that you think INEC needs to improve?
The areas I want to encourage INEC to improve upon is just with regards to logistics, because you can't force them in any area in this election. I'm finding it very difficult. They were timely. The personnel had good grasp of the machine, and the response to the relationship with the voter was very cordial. You notice that they were even pleading to voters, please, can you exercise patience? Can you please allow the elderly to vote first? Can you allow the physically challenged? Because everybody wanted to vote at the same time. So INEC has done very, very well. I emphasize it, very, very well. So we hope they'll keep this up going forward.
All right. We'll keep our fingers crossed and see what happens next month in Oshun election. Hopefully they can replicate what they've done in Ekiti, and then we can begin to look forward to the general election. Thank you very much, Nelson Akujimi.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Good pleasure.
All right, Aghogho, it's been an interesting conversation. First, we spoke to Dr. Doyin Okukwe, the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. Unfortunately, we were unable to reach Ladipo Johnson, the NNPP, his NNPP counterpart. But it was a good conversation we've had. And of course, we've talked to public affairs analyst Nelson Akujimi, who was in Ekiti to cover the elections. And like Nelson actually said, and I would want to reiterate, for everyone listening to Nigeria Info at this point in time and the sound of my voice, your vote will count. I've repeatedly said this. Your vote will count. And we would all need to, because again, if you don't come out to vote, you have actually voted. That's the sad point. If you don't come out to vote, you have actually voted, because you're counted amongst the registered voters who have got a chance to vote, but then chose not to for whatever reason. So you still got a couple of days, 10 more days at least officially, before registrations come to an end, even though there are feelers that there might be an extension. For now, it's not official yet. We'd have to wait until INEC makes that pronouncement. And like we've repeatedly said for months on our news bulletins here, elections have consequences. Go and get your PVC and go to any local government area around you to get, of course, an INEC office to do this. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. I've done this with Aghogho Oboh. Special thanks to the producers Emmanuel Onwoka and Precious Nena Okon. Not forgetting what's the name of that big head controlling the digital, Tunde. Shout out to you. You all have done a wonderful job. We'll see you guys again next week Monday.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria